y'all, Violet here, second generation homeschooling mom of 3. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an infant. Today I wanted to share with you some of my favorite education books, so let's get into it. So all of these books are general kind of teaching and learning and brain development books. I'm going to share more subject-specific books in a separate video, but I really like to focus on personal professional development, so to speak, during the summer because we do a lighter school schedule, so I do have more time. I like to read these kinds of books throughout the year too, but I just read them a lot more slowly when we're going full tilt on school. So I wanted to share with you some of my favorites from my past few years of reading. So let's start with The Knowledge Gap. This also might have been the first one that I read as well. So this is The Knowledge Gap by Natalie Wexler, and this book is all about the importance of background knowledge. So she talks a ton about core knowledge in this book and how it does a good job of building background knowledge, and kind of she also goes to a school and looks at how they're focusing on skills as opposed to content and how that's negatively impacting the student. So I skimmed the part where she was talking a ton about core knowledge and how amazing it is because I kind of got the point by then. But this first section, when she's really highlighting the difference between a curriculum that's focused on skills versus a curriculum that's focused on content, and then talking about the importance of students have to have content in order to be able to develop skills. I thought that part was really interesting and really useful, and definitely something to consider when you're looking at curriculum for your upcoming year. So that's kind of the main thing that I got from this book. This next one goes along nicely with that. It's Daniel Willingham's Why Don't Students Like School? A cognitive scientist answers questions about the mind and how it works and learning and all of that. So this book really dives into what kind of, let me see if I can find the table of contents. What kind of teaching strategies are most effective? What should we focus on when we're teaching? What do students need to get out of school? And so he talks a lot about how in order to be able to analyze something, in order to get students to think like experts, you have to have content knowledge to be able to draw on, and you have to have all this stuff in your head already memorized to reduce the load on your working memory. And he talks about how learning styles are a myth and just a lot of really helpful information. So I highly recommend this book as well. He has a book, this one's new, that I'm not quite done reading it yet, but this one's written more toward the student, and it's talking about ways to maximize their effectiveness when this is for an older kid, when they're taking notes, when they're studying for exams, things like that. So I am finding this one helpful, not as helpful for me right now because my kids are in elementary, but I think this is one that I'm going to revisit when my kids are older to help teach them all these really important study skills. So I'll just flip through it really quickly so you can kind of see how it's laid out. This next one dives even more deeply into how we learn. And so it talks a lot about using testing as a tool to aid memory, to make sure that all of those things we've learned don't slip from our memory. And so it talks about different ways to test, how it's most effective, any kind of spaced review that has your child recalling their knowledge is strengthening all of those connections in their brains so that they don't lose all that background knowledge that they're building. And then it talks about getting beyond learning styles and a lot of the similar things that Why Don't Students Like School, but in more depth. So I really, really liked this book. It was a good one to move on to from Why Don't Students Like School. Highly recommend this. They talk all about setting up your testing so that it is most effective for helping your students remember stuff, which is just so helpful. This next one, The Extended Mind, The Power of Thinking Outside the Brain. This one talks all about how we can use things outside of ourselves to aid learning and to aid our mental processes. So thinking with our bodies, thinking with our surroundings, and thinking with our relationships. So this one was really helpful for me to pull practical things from, like when I was thinking about how do I want to set up our homeschooling spaces? How do I want to have my kids do school? One of the sections in this that I remember vividly thinking, oh, I can do that really easily, is she talks about how, especially for young children, sitting still requires a large chunk of cognitive load. Like, it's hard for them. And so if you design a space where they don't have to sit still, this might seem like something that should be obvious, but if you design a space that they don't have to sit still, it can be a lot easier for them to learn. And so for us with our homeschooling, we kind of homeschool in a bunch of different rooms in our house, but I do have a table that we use sometimes. And so I have a stool that my daughter can stand on so she's the right height for handwriting, if she would prefer to stand instead of sit. Now that she's older, she just sits on she has like a wobble cushion and she'll sit in her chair and do that, and that's fine. But when she was younger, she did stand a lot, and that made it a lot easier for her to focus. And then she talks about a lot of other great stuff in here too, like using sign language to help remember concepts, and just anytime you're using more than one sense, and then like the value of group projects and all that. Yes, I really recommend this book too. I thought that one was really interesting. This one's not specifically geared towards like teachers or anything. It's sort of more of a general science book, but I found a lot that I could pull from and add to our homeschool. And then the last book that I want to show you right now is A Place to Belong by Amber O'Neill Johnston. She runs Heritage Mom, which is, I don't think it's 100% secular, but a lot of her units and things are, and she has a lot of really great resources. She's coming from a Charlotte Mason background, I believe. But in this book, she's talking all about how we approach diversity in our homeschool and how we need to create windows and mirrors for our kids. Windows being opportunities for kids to look into the lives of people who are different from them, and then mirrors being opportunities for them to look into the lives of people who are similar to themselves, and making sure we weight those appropriately for our own situation. So there was a lot that she talked in here about, from ranging from setting up your family library to evaluating the curriculum that you use, talking about your family culture and how you're going to set all of that up to really embrace diversity if that's a value that's important to you. So I thought this was really, really good and had some really good practical advice as well. I'll just flip through it quickly so you can kind of see what it looks like. And then at the end, it has questions to help you go through if you're doing this in a group or if you just want to reflect on your own, which I think is helpful. And then here's all the footnotes. So yeah. I hope you found that helpful. I will link everything in the description box below. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on an Amazon link and make a purchase, I do receive a small commission. Thank you for watching.